Arshia Cont.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to give my talk in English. You will excuse my French for that. So as an Iranian, I can tell you a lot of funny stories every time I pass through airports, especially Anglo-Saxon airports. My favorite one is when I pass through the passport control. You know, when you do some line and you have to show your passport. So when it comes to me, they look at my passport, whoa, born in Iran, and they're going to ask me some questions. The first question is, what's your job? So usually what you say is that I'm an engineer or medicine, and the second question is, what kind of engineer? So what I say is that I do computer music, but bizarrely, they never ask me what kind of music. So, and even some of them look at me in a weird way, like, yeah, I dance too, you know, what do you mean by computer music? So here's my story. I'm 16 years old. I don't have any animal. I'm obsessed with music, and unfortunately, I'm very good with math. So I'm struggling like a lot of people, music, math, engineering, music, math, engineering. And today, I'm very happy that I never decided. Because at some point when I was around 16, I discovered this video on the web. I turn this on. This video on the web. Let's just watch it. This is a piece composed in 1981, about a year after I was born, so now you know that I'm 134 years old. And it's a piece where computers and musicians, they're in one corpus. Let's just watch it. Filmed in Avignon, 1989. Computerized sounds. Beautiful setup. Technology is not just a button that you press like many synthesizers. Everything is all together. There's harmony. We don't care if you like the music or not. It's just there's a lot of power in what's happening there. So I'm 16. I see this on the internet, and I tell myself, this is what I want to do. That's it. It just resolved all my conflicts. So when you're in a situation like this, let's say that you want to do computer science. You say, okay, so, and you know you're far in some weird country. You're going to say, okay, computer science, I want to go to MIT. For computer music, it's very simple. You want to go to this place. It's called Ercom. It's in Paris. It's a very unique place where artists and researchers, they come together and they work on a common cause. The fact that researchers like me work with artists is very challenging because artists, they always challenge your assumptions. So, and they want things that work. And today, I'm very lucky to be working with a team composed of the best researchers and artists around the world. And we don't just work on music. We work on every form of art that is possible. And to get here, I had to go through 3 continents. I had to prove myself. So this is part of my early story. My more recent story is that when I was doing my doctorate work in San Diego and Paris jointly, I had a very important encounter. I met this composer, Marco Stropa, a pretty well-known composer today, who said, you know, we can make music for computers, but there is something that computers can't do, that is play with human musicians, participate intelligently with human musicians. So that was the beginning of a big project that is haunting me until today, and I'm going to describe you. And it led to the creation of several pieces involving computers and humans all together, like the opera where you're seeing the excerpts here, which was done in Opéra Comique in Paris. So in this opera, you have human musicians, you have an orchestra, you have robotized pianos on stage, you have a lot of speakers. They are in one corpus. Computers are not different. They communicate with humans, they synchronize themselves with humans, they coordinate themselves, etc., etc. So that's the Antescofo project. And I was very lucky because after we did this with Marco Stroppa at around 2009, since then the project has gone worldwide. Antescofo has had chances to play with Berlin Philharmonic, New York Philharmonic, Los Angeles Philharmonic, BBC Orchestra, Tokyo, in a lot of great festivals, and it has been adopted by a lot of artists. So before I tell you what Antescofo is, let's talk about computers. Let's talk about humans. What happens when humans play music together? Several of them. Well, each of them is playing his or her own part. They are constantly listening to each other. They are coordinating their actions and they're synchronizing their actions together. And most importantly, they anticipate. They anticipate what's going to happen in the future. That's why they're all the time together. And the music they're going to perform is most of the time more or less written in different forms. But it's not going to change when you go to a classical music concert, for example. If you want to go and hear some Mozart piece, it's always a Mozart piece that you're going to hear, but it's every time different. And all these changes happen in real time. And they just do it. More importantly, they're tolerant to false alarms. They're tolerant to errors. If one of them makes a mistake, they're not going to just go down and stop playing. That's called fault tolerance. So these are all nice, but they're very hard to achieve with computers. The other thing which is very amazing with music, again, not talking about computers, is that, and especially in Western countries and also in other cultures like mine or India, there is always some form of authorship. It's very complex. This is a score of Mahler's 8th Symphony called the Symphony of Thousands, written for hundreds of musicians on stage. The guy, when he writes the music, he can imagine what's going to happen on stage. It's amazing. You rarely can do that with computers. You have to do a lot of tests, and then it's going to be buggy, and then it's going to crash down, and you're going to spend a lot of money to rewrite the whole thing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's even more amazing when you have a huge orchestra. You have hundreds of people playing together. They can coordinate, listen, synchronize, anticipate. It's just amazing. So that's the goal of the Antescofo project, to bring this human intelligence, human musical intelligence to computers. So that's the story which got us started with Marco Stroppa. Now I'm going to tell you another story, because it's nice to have computers communicate and write complicated pieces, operas with robots and stuff like that. But it can even go further. So I'm going to tell you Jack's story. So Jack's story is the following. Jack is a pianist. He plays piano. And when you play piano for a long time, after a while, you're going to get obsessed with playing music with huge orchestras. And most people like you and me, you cannot afford having a big orchestra in your houses. So here is Jacques playing with Orchestre de Paris. And it's Orchestre de Paris which is adapting itself to Jacques playing. Jacques can make mistakes. And the Orchestre de Paris is actually listening to him and synchronizing and coordinating with him. Jacques feels empowered. He can play the piece as he wants. He's the conductor. It just feels great. It's the same story. So the idea is that music is not just for being listened. We all want to produce music. Let's keep this phrase and come back to this later. So how can this work? So the idea of Antescofo is very simple. The computer should be able to listen and to react. Okay? So we're talking about artificial listening. So it's the ear that you see up there. And the ear is pretty different from what you have on your cell phones. So most of you are familiar with text recognition or Siri on your iPhones. So in word recognition, you recognize words at the end of their pronunciation. Here, when Jacques is playing piano, we need to recognize it immediately when it comes in. Okay? It's as if I'm going to anticipate which word you're going to say and do it right away before you finish the word. okay? And when I say as soon as possible, we're talking about maximum 10 to 20 milliseconds, okay? This is 1 billion times less than the time I have left to finish my talk. So everything happens in real time. So this is very different from speech recognition that you have on your smartphones. But listening is not enough. So when you perceive something, you want to act. Okay? That's the reactive part of the story. And I'm sure most politicians are going to be in accord with that. You need to react to what you hear. And this should also happen in real time. This is how the system is going to play back the orchestra or control the robots, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not sufficient either because we want to anticipate, and you need to have some intentionality, okay? So talking about intentionality is a difficult affair. How are we going to capture the musician's intentionality? To keep things simple, we use a phenomenon that exists in nature called clock sympathy. Who knows about clock sympathy? So clock sympathy is very simple. In nature, there are thousands and millions of clocks, like pendulums, etc., and they're always synchronizing together. It's a phenomenon that exists in nature that was discovered a few centuries back by the scientist Huygens. Let's just watch a video that describes this phenomena. So in this video, we're just going to set several metronomes together. They're all non-synchronized. We're going to put them on 2 cans of Coke, soda. So you see that they're not synchronized. We're just going to put them on 2 soda cans, and after a few seconds, just listen. That's called clock sympathy. It exists in nature, which means that every clock has the tendency to synchronize after a while. In our case, it's very simple. There is one clock, which is the human, the other clock is the machine, and they synchronize as fast as they can so that they can synchronize together in the future. They can finish a phrase together as if there are several musicians playing together. And that's not the end of the story. Because, as I said, you need also fault tolerance. So what do we mean by fault tolerance? So fault tolerance is when you have real-time systems that are very critical. Okay? The most extremist example of fault tolerance in critical systems is this. Okay? This is a real-time system called an airplane. It needs to be fault tolerant. If there is one sensor that is not working very well, you should not stop the engine. It should continue on its path. Okay? Fault tolerance is very hard to achieve with computers. So there are thousands of researchers working on that so that bugs wouldn't occur, so the systems can correct themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So this is also another issue. So in 2010, I was actually lost in all these, and I had another very important encounter with this researcher who actually just won the CNRS gold medal called Gérard Berry. He actually implemented the systems that are in use in Airbus 380, TGV, Boeing, and all that stuff. The idea is that what you write is what you see and what you get. As simple as that. These are safe systems and safe languages. And more importantly, they allow engineers to focus on functionalities. We just translated them into music. So Antescofo is not only an intelligent system, but it also allows people, meaning artists and amateurs and makers, to express their ideas. That's what languages are for. And we are still far from the rich semantics that art, languages in their different forms can achieve for computers, and we still have a lot of work to do. So to sum up things, I'm going to tell you another story. So we saw Jacques' story. I'm going to tell you another story which can become yours. So even if you don't play instruments, I'm sure you all listen to music. I'm not going to even ask who doesn't listen to music here. It's going to be ridiculous. And you all have an instrument. It's your voice. And I'm sure each one of you has at some point started singing in the shower, okay? Or try to imitate your favorite singer. That's also what you can do with this kind of technology. So that's what we thought about a year ago. And we, for a similar event, we invited Marlène Schaff, who was a singer in the French season of The Voice in 2013. And she's doing a karaoke. You all know what is a karaoke. But the difference here is that it's the karaoke part which is going to adapt to you.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. And anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain. Don't carry the world upon your shoulder. For well you know that it's a fool who plays it cool by making his world a little colder.
So I believe this is the beginning of a new story for our technology, and I hope that we can make it available to all of you as soon as possible. What I like about what has happened is that we did not make art for technologies, but we made technologies for the arts. And I found this very, very beautiful. Thank you for your attention.